Hi everybody, Fred the Pirate here, and this is a review for Young Justice Season 2, Episode 20, entitled Endgame. And unfortunately, this is also the series finale for Young Justice since it has been canceled. So, the summary for this week's episode is Young Justice takes on the Reach in the final battle and discovers that victory may cost them everything. So, in this week's episode, we finally get the Young Justice team taking on the Reach, or rather, they're kind of taking on the Reach's plan to destroy the world, because obviously, at the beginning of this episode, when they're trying to battle the Reach, Jaime Scarab gets in contact with Black Beetle Scarab, and he, interestingly enough, in that battle, he ends up fighting, Black Beetle ends up fighting both the Green Beetle and Blue Beetle. He ends up destroying Green Beetle Scarab, but the Green Beetle ends up living because, he's a Martian and they're pretty resilient. But when he tries to fight Jaime, Jaime and his Scarab finally work together after pretty much this whole season of them kind of butting heads. And Jaime's Scarab ends up actually destroying the Black Beetle Scarab. But he ends up living, which I'm not really sure why, because I assume that if you destroyed a scarab, it would kill its host. So I'm kind of wondering why he did not end up dying because of that. Maybe it affects the Reach differently than other people. But anyways, through doing that, he finds out that the Black Beetle has placed all of these electromagnetic disruptors at various points on the Earth in order to destroy Earth's magnetic field and to essentially destroy the planet. And the way this happens is that when these electromagnetic disruptors reach a certain stage called their chrysalis stage, that they automatically detonate, and that detonation will destroy the planet Earth. So, through this episode, the team tries to find a way to stop these things to make sure that the planet does not get destroyed. And at the same time, on Rimbor, the Justice League ends up being acquitted of their crimes based on the fact that the evidence that the team gathered last week at the summit between the Reach and the Light. So, interestingly enough, right after the Justice League is acquitted of their crimes, Vandal Savage shows up with the Warworld, and he tells pretty much all the aliens there that if they try to invade or mess with the Earth, that there'll be consequences. So that was interesting. So pretty much that's what happens. Without giving spoilers, that's kind of what happened this week. So if for those of you who haven't watched the episode, there's the spoilery free version, but I'm gonna talk about some spoilery stuff this episode, so be warned. So that's what happened this week. I liked it. It was an interesting episode. Obviously, what happened at the end of the episode, and if you watched the end of the episode, I was really disappointed because, towards the end of the episode, we find Vandal Savage talking to Darkseid in Apocalypse. So it's obvious that next season, if there would have been a next season, that it would have been pretty awesome. So, we would have finally, the whole thing that they've been doing with the Apocalypse stuff since season 1, that totally would have happened next season. If we would have had a third season, that would have totally happened. And it's like, why, Cartoon Network? Why did you cancel this? I mean, honestly, I don't know if this series would have gotten 4 or 5 seasons, but it kind of seems like maybe they were just aiming for 3 seasons, and it's like, you couldn't have given them one more. Um, Although, honestly, I think that they tied everything up, but, like, honestly, this really didn't feel like a series finale. Although I have to say, in fairness, I don't think the people who were producing it were making it a series finale. I mean, I know usually with cartoons, it takes months for them to produce an episode. So I figure, they probably completed these episodes before they found out that the series was not going to be renewed and was effectively canceled. So I think that this would have been a great season finale, but obviously, I mean, it's good for an unexpected series finale, but like you can tell that they were definitely planning to do more with this series, that there was more stuff they wanted to do, and that there was more stories that they wanted to tell. And it's unfortunate that that obviously didn't happen. Um, Obviously, one of the big things that happened this week's episode was Wally ended up dying in the team's efforts to stop the electromagnetic disruptor things from destroying the planet. So that was definitely sad. Um, because Wally was a really nice character. Um, I'm assuming that if they would have gotten another season, that they would have probably revived Wally because, I mean, superheroes rarely stay dead for long in, their universes. There's usually always some way to bring them back. Although, honestly, I have to admit that Young Justice has been pretty good about keeping dead people, dead. So, like, I haven't really seen them bring back anybody that was, you know, that had died that came back. So maybe they wouldn't have brought him back. So that was certainly really interesting. Um, it was interesting towards the end of the episode to see that Tim and Wonder Girl had hooked up. Although I think in the comic books, I'm pretty sure Wonder Girl hooks up with Connor. So and then I think she's with Tim, like after she's with Connor, because I know in the comic books Connor dies and then she hooks up with Tim. But so that's definitely interesting. Also we saw Bart take on the mantle of Kid Flash. Although he's definitely sad about it because I think he would have wanted to take on that mantle on more of a positive note. And also we see Tigress, Artemis become Tigress, that she retires her Artemis mantle and, becomes Tigress officially, as, blonde Tigress. So that was interesting. It would have been nice to see where that went. Obviously, we're not gonna see that. It would have been nice. So overall, this was a really good episode. It worked well. I obviously, as I said, as a series, as a season finale. Not so much a series. I mean, it was good for what we got. I think you can obviously tell again that they weren't planning for this to be the final episode of the show. So it would be nice to think that there would be some way for them to renew the series and to make another stuff. I've heard that the Young Justice comic books, I think, are doing a pretty good job of that. So maybe I've heard they're kind of continuing some of the stories and dealing with some of the stuff that happens in the comic book version of this series, like because they have a comic book series based on the show. And I think that's still continuing, although it's kind of weird that they would continue a comic book series that is based off of a television show that has been canceled. So, um, Like, who knows, they might keep doing that stuff. So I guess if you want more Young Justice stuff, maybe you can check out the comic book of the same name. Now they have like an older comic book series that's entitled Young Justice because that's the name of the team. But there's a newer Young Justice series of comics that they have that is based off of the cartoon. So I think if you're looking for Young Justice comics, you want them to be published, in the 2012 2013 time period, because I think that they had another, I think, I believe that there was a series of Young Justice comics, or at least titled that, I think, that were published sometime like in the 80s. So you want the new ones. So definitely might have to check those out. But I heard they're kind of continuing the adventures in that, so that might be something to check out. Otherwise, this was a really good episode. Definitely liked it. Sad that it got canceled, but with that said, I'd like to hear your guys' opinion on this week's episode. And since the series is completed, at least in TV form, to hear some of your guys' thought on the series as a whole. What you liked and what you didn't. So with that said, make sure that you guys comment, rate, and subscribe, and I will see you guys again next time.